Hello. So today, everybody, I'm gonna remake my fairly popular hazel coppice film. Some people said it was shaky and wobbly, which it probably was. Well, it is, and I've got a great example here. Skydivers are out today. That's the drone of the plane. Sorry about that, can't help that. So today, this hazel stool, hazel coppicing, has been the general format for hazel coppicing has been to chop the whole thing down, or the whole hazel stool down, and put the brash over the top to stop the deer from killing it. The problem with this is that it requires, it also, even when you put the brash over the top, they still also advocate fencing, deer fencing, etc, etc. And they never take the fence down. Well, very rarely do they take the fence down, and it's very expensive. It's all grant aided, and it's really unnecessary. So what I'm going to share with you now is the proper way of coppicing hazel. I mean, proper way, this is in my view, my experience. I've had plenty of experience now, and I can tell you that this is by far the most sensible and effective and safe way of coppicing hazel. So here's the hazel. Here we are. This is a fairly compact hazel stool comprising of some thin rods, thinnish rods, slightly thicker rods, even slightly more thicker rods, more thin rods, and here quite big stuff, 4-inch diameter, 5-6 inches at the bottom. We've got a bit of decaying, nearly dead, but see, look, decaying bit there. So frankly, this hazel, it's sort of all different ages, is one way of looking at it. It has been coppiced before, and what you can see now is there's a variety of stuff in there. Well, this piece, normally I'd make charcoal with that, but actually it makes pretty good firewood as well. So if you're not in a position to make charcoal with it, then it's worth having for firewood. You want to dry it out a bit, but my experience is it's pretty good stuff. You leave it for 6 months. So the idea is, okay, we want to cut it. We want to do the best job we can with as little, as little work as possible, and leave a nice tidy job. And also, if we can give the, if we can help with future product harvesting, then that's a bonus. So that's what we're going to do. And how we're going to do that is by taking out this bit, which I'll use for firewood, and this big bit, which I'll use for firewood, and then because my little chainsaw can come in. I call it selective coppicing, and I'm going to take these bits out that I can use, and then I'm going to have a look at what's left. Okay. Okay, so that bit I wanted to drop it that way, but it was caught up on something and it wanted to go that way, so I put it that way instead. Sometimes it can be tricky getting them out, but that's just the nature of it. It's exactly the same for everybody. You need to be mindful of not getting your saw trapped in doing this job. If you cut into a stem and it leans the wrong way, it will trap the saw. So cut the gob out and then cut in at the back, cut the gob facing the direction you'd like the tree, or you think the tree will go, and then cut in the back and make a hinge. And you can, within reason, drop things where you want. It takes a bit of practice. Quite often with hazel, I do my cuts up here at that height, as you saw me doing. I do that because it leaves me quite a long stem, which I can come in, and it's held. I can chop my log sized bits off there, and also it keeps it clear of it just works quite well. You have to play it by ear, but you know, you don't want to be starting right up here, but at head height it can work very well. But you just have to be, you know, use your common sense. So what I did get out of there, and I had to cut this one. That is basically, I would call that a pea stick. Very good. You get 4 or 5 of those. Very useful in the garden. Used to be used all the time before we got bamboo. And actually, believe it or not, bamboo will grow very well in this country, in the UK. But I think for the most part it's all being imported from Japan. So what have we got left? We've got, clear away some of this at the bottom so you can see. So now what we've got is we've got a hazel stool, which, if I tidy it up a little bit, you'll be able to see. Now if a deer come along, if this puts out shoots from the bottom, which it probably will, and deer come along, deer do like fresh hazel shoots. Now if I cut the whole thing down, I would have had the deer could potentially come along, even though in my experience they don't, but potentially the deer could come along and eat all the regrowth and kill the stool. Well, doing it this way, if this shoot puts out, if this stump puts out shoots and the deer eat it, that will encourage the stool to put its energy into what's already there, which the deer can't eat. And what I can see here is that by doing this, in a few years, okay, I'll have potentially trellis poles, bean poles. This is already almost a bean pole, you see. I don't have a market for that right at the moment, but I know where these are, and they will grow, and I can keep an eye on them. And this bigger bit here will probably end up being firewood again, but in the meantime I've tidied it up. I've tidied it up. I don't need a deer fence, okay. I don't have all this stuff that I don't have a market for right now to deal with. And I've got some, well, what have I got? Okay, might sound like a bit of an old git, old git with a GoPro, but there we are. I've got quite a good staff there, pole of some sort. You know, tidy that up. People like these things, and that'll make a very interesting walking stick. Useful pole. It's very, very useful stuff. We've got used to not using it, and that's a shame, really. because there's masses of it everywhere, and it grows back with a vengeance, and allows people like me to work out in the woods. In fact, even to live in the woods. So I hope that's hope you found that helpful, useful, interesting. You know, if you are applying for coppicing grants and you're coppicing in conjunction with the establishment, then you might find my methods frowned upon, but they're frowned upon for no good reason at all. They're frowned upon simply because doing it this way takes out, you know, takes the middlemen out of the equation, and it hands the power back to you, the woodsman, rather than, you know, because this is quite valuable stuff. It's valuable firewood. It's worth having. The grant system tells you, oh well, it's not, you know, oh, what you're doing isn't worth doing, but we can help, and they don't actually help. I'm sorry. It's a very clever control mechanism, as I've said before, and there we are. I won't go on and on for hours and hours and hours, because you've probably got some coppicing to do, and if it's not raining, best job is get on and do it. Okay. Also, with the other method, the sanctioned method, very often they'll suggest that you chop everything into 3-foot lengths and pile it up for the insects to eat. Well, you know, there isn't. The insects are doing fine, trust me, and it's another mechanism that makes it ineffective, because there's no product. Nobody wants 3-foot lengths. If somebody wanted 3-foot lengths, they could ask you for 3-foot lengths, and you could cut them 3-foot lengths. In the meantime, what I do is I cut wood to a size where I can either charcoal it or burn it myself for firewood, like this size. That is a great piece of firewood. You want to dry it out a bit, you know, if you could leave it for a year, but it's great firewood. It's worth having, it's worth chopping. What the petrol for the running the chainsaw is a minimal fraction of what that wood's worth. It's very, very cost effective, incredibly cost effective, and actually profitable, really. So, what else I got out of that stool was these. Now, a lot of people nowadays wouldn't use them because their neighbours would talk about it, but I would call that a washing line prop. See, it's 12 foot, 12 foot tall. It's probably a bit overkill, but actually it's a very useful pole. Not just a, well, you know, it's a useful thing in the garden. Anyway, if you peel it, if you peel all the bark off now, it'll last for a long time. Okay, it's not perfectly straight or anything, but it's solid and it's there. Okay, so that's that one. This one is a perfect washing line prop. Okay. If you took the bark off that, it'll last you, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 years out in the garden as a washing line prop. And it won't go rusty and so on. So call me old fashioned if you like, but it's useful stuff. And here's another one. That's slightly chunkier, but you see what I'm saying, there's useful stuff there, and it's actually beautiful. As I say, if you take the bark off, peel the bark off, it's a very nice job to do, and you'll end up with, you can make walking sticks, all kinds of things out from it. And you know, not only are you creating products, but you're actually caring for the woodland as well, because what will happen here now is I've stirred the ground up a little bit, let some light in, and next spring you will see interesting things will happen, because there's been some activity and there's some light, and flowers and things will pop up, and it works. It works. Okay, so another thing I'm going to do and show you is, okay, we've got quite a big ash tree here, which is basically it's a liability, great firewood, and I'm going to fell it. The thing with it is it's leaning. Okay, it's actually one ash tree that's been coppiced at some point, split into two. That side's very rotten. When the wind blows, it rocks. The ground rocks. You can see there's not a great deal actually holding it up there, and if I don't chop it down, it'll fall down eventually, and that's a real mess. I'm going to take this one out first, and you can see I've made some room for it. Obviously I want to make room for it. Now it is going to hit a few other bits of stuff when it comes down, but I've got the obvious bits out of the way. See, there was a big lump of hazel there, which it definitely would have hit. Birch, other various bits there, which it would have hit, and might have stopped it actually landing on the floor. So it's probably going to hit a bit of this hazel. It's gonna land. See, I already cut that hazel. If it hits that, or when it hits that, afterwards I'll tidy it up again. But I mean, it might just miss it, we don't know. My experience is you have to take out the really obvious stuff and then, you know, deal with the smaller bits later on. It's probably going to hit that bit of hazel there. It's no big deal, I can tidy that up afterwards. The important thing is that it hits the floor. Okay? If it hangs up in something, you've got a real problem. if it hits the floor, if it severs at the trunk and hits the floor, you can deal with it. But if the trunk doesn't sever and it hangs up in something else, then it starts getting very complicated, and I don't like complicated. Sometimes things are complicated regardless of what you do. But there's another issue with this tree, which is that it's leaning out that way. There's quite a lot of weight to that side of it. In some ways that's great because I know it'll go that way, but the issue is the barber chair. Alright, what this will want to do when I do my gob cut in there, when I come in at the back there, it's going to want to split, and that's the whole tree is going to want to split right up the middle of the trunk. This bit will fling up out there, it'll snap off up there somewhere, roll off, and if you weren't expecting that, it could kill you, frankly. And we don't want to do that just yet, do we? So how am I going to deal with the barber chair issue? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a ratchet strap around it, which is the best way of dealing with this. Put two straps on there. From here you can see how much it's leaning out that way, and I'm going to come and put the camera. Where shall I put the camera? Okay, so if I hadn't put the straps on, I think that my gob cut was to about there. If I hadn't put the straps on, by the time I'd cut to about there, it would have split completely. But the straps stopped it from doing that, and it's gone pretty much exactly where I wanted it to go. Now it has, I said it would hit a few bits, and it has hit a few bits, but it also missed a few bits, you see, because you can't exactly tell what it's going to hit. You can't that's pretty good. Bit of hazel there, so tidy that up. So how far did it come? It came to exactly where I said it was going to go to. And this is about there. So that's a liability dealt with. It's a nice big load of firewood. Ash is your best firewood, really, I would say, and that's what that is. And mission accomplished. So I'm here in my little woodland office. Got my burners going. It's nice and warm in here, and I'd like to show you my book. Oops. Bear with me. So, if you're interested in my film, try and put a light on there. The New Woodsman, the basics of modern woodmanship, charcoal burning, firewood, chainsaws, asset and liability management, tree felling, coppice products, a practical approach. Okay, it's self-published by me, and this copy's got a bit of cubbings on it. Get that off. If you buy one, you get absolutely pristine, brand new. On the back, Tom Barron has lived and worked in English woodland for over 20 years. In this short book, he shares what he's learned about woodmanship, both practical and philosophical. Covers basic tree felling using a tier 4 or tier 4 winch, making charcoal in 8-foot diameter kilns, rudimentary chainsaw use and maintenance, how structural timbers can be cut with a chainsaw, and coppice management without fences or grants. Around 2005, a kindly English lord gave Tom the opportunity to live and work in a large broadleaf woodland, free from interference from the planning departments and forestry commissions, etc. He spent the next 17 years coming to the conclusion that there is a covert war being waged on self-sufficiency and self-reliance. Tom shows how natural woodland is a neglected resource and suggests that this is mainly by design, and advocates treating the protection / conservation paradigm of today as a carefully disguised control mechanism that works in favour of large forestry companies and dubious charities that have no interest in people's livelihoods. He does, however, understand that most woodland owners and workers have little choice but to comply. Okay, so it's a very good book, I would say that. But there's firewood, cutting structural timbers, obviously not on a huge scale. None of this is on a huge scale. It's aimed at the small woodland owner who wants to make a difference in their own way. Chainsaw use, very useful information about chainsaws, things that you won't find anywhere else based on experience. Little things that make a difference. There's a chapter on what happens with neglected modern day coppices where they never take the fence down. It turns into an eyesore and a completely pointless, expensive waste of time. A bit about trees, a little bit about land use. It's a great book. It's a great book. It's well worth 12 quid. And you can. I'll put the details in the notes, and there we are. Job done.